Alrighty guys, the Diablo 4 beta is about to start for the server slam, but there's a lot of secret patches that weren't actually included in terms of the patch notes for buffs and nerfs. They actually mentioned some of the things that they plan to change over in an official blog post. Now, these cover all of the classes here. However, some of these were a little bit more vague. They didn't tell us like how much are they buffing certain things by. For example, the Whirlwind skill deals more damage. Well, how much more damage is that? How much of a buff did the Druid specifically get? Now, these are data mine numbers, so we have all of the buffs and nerfs that were kind of hidden from us because we did know that certain things were going to be getting changed, but they didn't specify, and some of these weren't even in the official Blizzard post, so let's go ahead and go over them. But keep in mind, since it is a data mine, things are subject to change. So here's my thoughts on these as well, because it's my first time checking them out. So checking out Barbarian from the start over here, we are looking at a nerf with challenging shout in terms of the cooldown. Now, in terms of the different damage reduction over here, so it says the cooldown has a number of seconds. It doesn't specify, but this number obviously could be changed. But it looks like not necessarily the cooldown is getting changed in here in terms of what we're seeing, but it's the taunt nearby enemies and gain extra damage reduction. This actually got a nerf by 2 seconds for the duration, as well as the percent of damage reduction has been nerfed. So you can see all these numbers here at the top. The numbers that are crossed out are the old values, and these right here are the new values. So basically, that is overall going to be a nerf to our Barbarian's challenging shout. We have Rallying Cry. The resource generation is being, it looks like, reduced. And then Hammer the Ancients looks like the bonus damage. Some of these could be certain like legendary powers, by the way. This looks like what they may be changing, but it looks like this over here has actually been nerfed. It's a small amount though. If we look at like the higher end by like 106.4% going down to 95, so it's more whole number. This could be just to make things a lot easier for like numbers versus rounding them, but overall looks like it is quite a big, 10% damage here and there. It could add up. And then it looks like when we have an enhanced bash, so the enemies that you stun will grant you extra base life as fortified. This is actually going to be a buff for Barbarian. And then with the enhanced whirlwind, you're going to be able to gain extra fury against elite enemies. So that is a buff for Barbarian for sustaining whirlwind. And then with double swing, we're going to be able to gain more fury. So it looks like a buff to whirlwind as well as the double swing with the enhanced versions of those. And then with counter offensive over here, it looks like we are taking a nerf, so you get less fortification. But some of these aren't actually that bad, and the reason why I mentioned this is because in the official Blizzard post, they actually mentioned that Barbarian is straight up just going to take 10% less damage from everything. That's just a free buff they actually got. So some of these might not be that much of a nerf. In fact, it could be even a buff since the last time we played, but looks like Iron Skin is going to be actually able to absorb more of our maximum life, so that is a buff to Barbarian. And then with Defensive Stance, it looks like we're going to be able to increase the damage reduction, and that is going to be while fortified. And this is actually taking a nerf, so it used to go up in the higher end 30% down to 20, but remember, we're getting 10% flat damage reduction, so doesn't really matter too much if that makes any sense. And then, okay, so this is the old Fury cost of the lucky hit chance. So it looks like it used to be 13, 14, 15, and now it's 17, 19. So I think that this would be overall a net buff because you're increasing your lucky hit chance. So Whirlwind is getting buffed. So if you have certain things that may work off of lucky hit, that's going to be a buff. Now with Furious Whirlwind over here, it looks like we are doing more damage. So it's 40% damage instead of 20% of its base damage for bleed. So that is a buff. Then we have Power War Cry, and it says if at least 6 enemies are nearby when you cast a War Cry, our bonus damage is going to be increased. It's just now by an additional 10%. So maybe we don't even get the scaling anymore. It's just flat 10% or 10. It says X 10%. So I'm guessing. Yeah, it's just 10%. I don't think it would be times 10 times 10 damage. But there is maybe a different wording in Diablo if you've played Path of Exile. Or, yeah, Diablo or Path of Exile. Sometimes there are multiplicative and then there's additive. I don't know if this means a multiplicative, additional 10%. Anyways, next up with Might Warcry, we are getting a change over here. It's going to grant us 15% base life as Fortify, so that is a nerf to that. And then with Furious Upheaval, we are going to be able to only increase the damage by 3% versus 8%, so that is like more than a 50% nerf in terms of the numerical values. Then we have Tactical Rallying Cry, so it's going to be able to generate extra fury, and then also, so that got nerfed, and the resource generation got nerfed. It used to be 50%, now it's 20%. And then next up over here with Violent Hammer of the Ancients. So now it seems like you deal 30% more damage. Instead of it being 2 seconds, it is now 5 seconds. So that is a buff to Hammer of the Ancients. And then with Strategic Iron Skin, it's going to grant us extra base life as Fortify. So that is a buff of 6%. And then with the Battle Frenzy, while berserking, your other skills gain extra attack speed for each stack of Frenzy you have. Okay, so that works with everything now, I guess, is maybe the update here in terms of this text. And then with the Strategic Challenging Shout, while it's active, we're going to be able to gain Thorns equal to 30. Ooh, that's a huge nerf to Thorns. That's 20% worse. Then now with Tough as Nails, increases our Thorns by... it used to be 20, 40, 60, 80. Now it's 2, 3, 6. Wow, that's a big nerf. At the higher end, you're losing 170 flat Thorns. And then when enemies hit by you, they take an additional 10%. Okay, so even though it used to be an additional 1% of your Thorns as bleed damage, it's 10% of your Thorns as bleed damage. So it is a nerf, but then there's a pretty big buff. I mean, that's times 10. But it's over bleed, so that is over duration, which actually might not be a bad thing if you are a bleed build at the end of the day. Next up, the Guttural Yell is going to make it so enemies will deal, at least do 80%. This got cut in half in terms of the higher. I'm just looking at the higher end so we can kind of see like the numerical values. But overall, it looks like it's just cut in half. But remember, you're also going to be able to take 10% less. And if these are additive or multiplicative, it can matter quite a bit. Next up, Blooming Voice or Shout skills effect durations are increased. Looks like we just lost like a 20% there in terms of like the higher numbers. And then damage reduction with the Martial Vigor against elites, just another 10%. It's to make up for the other 10% that you get anyway. So it looks like a lot of these changes are just for that 10%. And then on top of that, we have Outburst, which makes it so you're going to be gaining flat Thorns. So that number has remained the same, but you also gain, it used to be 20, but now it's 10 Thorns for each 50. Oh, that's a huge nerf. So it used to be 20 Thorns for each 25 maximum life. Now it's cut in half, and then doubled the amount of bonus life required. I mean, Thorns was actually pretty powerful, but perhaps towards the end of the game, you will be getting a lot more Thorns, so it might not be that bad, but that is a huge, huge nerf to Thorns for Barbarian. Next up, though, we have Prime Iron Maelstrom. It makes so Iron Maelstrom gains increased critical strike chance. I'm not sure what exactly got changed over here. Nothing was really crossed out, but maybe just a rework on the wording on it. We have Aggressive Resistance, so we're able to get extra resistances. This has actually been nerfed by basically 10% in terms of like numerical values at the higher end. Well, it's actually a flat number of 10%. So again, the 10% that we have kind of makes up for it. And then with Iron Maelstrom, so how it used to work, let's see what it says. Damage reduction while, cooldown, lucky hit chance active 3 times to attach change to each of your weapons and perform an attack. First, your two-handed bludgeoning weapon slams into the ground, dealing 60% damage and stunning enemies for 2 seconds. And then it says next, your two-handed slashing weapon swipes in front of you, dealing 20% damage, inflicting 120% bleed damage over 5 seconds. Then finally, your dual-wield weapon swings around you, dealing 32.5% damage per hit. Okay, so I guess maybe just wording, it just does all of those. In terms of wording, I think that's the only thing that's really highlighted here. Next up, Wrath of Berserker. It's getting changed. So it says seconds, so it says cooldowns, but it says seconds explode into rage, knocking back surrounding enemies, and gaining Berserking and Unstoppable for 5 seconds. I think this is just wording change. I'm not sure if that changes, but maybe you just get to knock back the surrounding enemies at the start. So that'd be, in theory, a buff, right? Because you're knocking enemies, which could apply when enemies are affected by crowd control effects. They take less damage or more damage or whatever the case may be. Warcry over here is being changed. So with that, it's going to increase our damage. And it used to be, these numbers look like the same, but it lasts for 2 seconds less. And then it affects allies by 1 second less. So it's a nerf to Warcry. All right, so as far as Druid goes, these are massive changes. I just noticed how long this video is going to actually be. But let's go ahead and go through it. So with Druid Elemental Exposure, lucky hit, we actually got, they're nerfing Druid. So we used to have a 20% chance to make enemies vulnerable. Now it's a 10%. So nerf to Druid, that's a big surprise. But next up with Abundance Basic Skills, we are going to be able to generate some more, and wait, am I looking at this right? They're nerfing Druid? It used to be 10, 20, 30. Now it's 6, 12. I felt like Druid had a spirit problem already. Wow. And I thought Druid was supposed to get the biggest buffs because in the community, a lot of us have been talking about, you know, there's the Druid being kind of the weakest class out of the bunch here. Next up, though, we had the increase the range and radius of Maul. So this actually got another nerf. It reduced the radius of it. Then next up we have Boulder, the cooldown, seconds lucky hit, Boulder that repeatedly knocks back. So maybe it hits more times, but we're going to be able to generate Spirit, so it's 14 on luck. So this is a buff. Okay. So next up over here with Storm Strike, we're going to be able to generate less lucky hit chance. So it's another nerf. And then in terms of the Landslide, the old one over here, lucky hit chance, crush enemies between 2 pillars, and it deals some sort of damage. Wait, they got nerfed again. Look at the numbers. So it deals less damage. The new one does just straight up less damage. 75, 82 is really weird that they're going to all these decimals. But yeah, Druid actually got nerfed. This is wild. Maybe if maybe in the patch notes later we'll read Druid gets like double, quadruple damage. This all makes sense now. But now what I'm seeing is just crazy. So next up, the Fierce Earth Spike. It says fortify for it used to be 2. Now it's 4% of your base life, so that would be a buff on that. And then we get to generate 10 lucky hit chance. Okay, so next up with Earth Spike, we get 10 lucky hit chance, so that is technically a buff. Then we have an Enhanced Maul, so if an enemy is hit by Maul, then you get to fortify for 2% of your base life. So it says 1 to 1.6. I'm not sure exactly what this means, but I would say overall this is probably a buff, so that's good. I think that may be when you're in the bear form. So next up with the Enhanced Shred, so it gains 3% attack speed and it heals for another nerf to Druid, only 1% instead of 2% over there. And then with the Pulverize will overpower every 12 seconds instead of 10, so that's another nerf. Enhanced Cyclone Armor, enemies who are knocked back by Cyclone Armor are also slowed by, it used to be 1, now it's 2 seconds, so it's a buff. And then with Ravens, you're going to have increased critical strike chance against enemies for 6% after they are hit by Ravens, okay? And then Enhanced Trample, it's used to be deal 30% damage, now it's 150% bonus. This is the stuff I wanted to see, okay? And then this bonus is reduced by 50% for each enemy after the first hit. Okay, so there's a huge reduction after the first enemy, but the first enemy is getting hit way harder. I think this is what Druid needed, honestly, at the end of the day. All right, so next up, speaking of Druid, let's go watch some Druid gameplay now. And then on top of that, we have the next changes over here with Wild Impulses. So our core skills are going to now deal, they cost a certain set amount. So it's going to cost less, but they will deal less damage, because it used to be 5, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now it's 5, 10, 15. So it's like a huge nerf to Wild Impulses, but the cost is going to be reduced at the end of the day. So next up, though, we have Innate Debilitating Roar. So Debilitating Roar also slows enemies by 65%, so a 15% bonus. Then Raging Pulverize. Enemies overpowered by Pulverize are stunned by 2 seconds when they are overpowered with Pulverize. I guess there's maybe just a wording change. And then Wild Maul has a, instead of 10, it's now 20% chance to knock down enemies, so it's a buff. And then with Debilitating Roar in Werebear form, we're going to be able to reduce the damage dealt by enemies by 70%, so that's a buff. Lightning Storm, it used to have some lucky hit chance, and then these numbers, I guess, are going to be going up, so that is going to be a buff for them. And then Call of the Wild, it just now says your companion skills deal set amount of bonus damage. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what the change was with this. Instead of it being your companions, it's now companion skills. So it means you have to actually activate them, not just a flat. I would say this is probably a nerf. Charged Atmosphere makes it so every 18, 15, every seconds, a lightning bolt will strike down. And this is, instead of a lightning strike, it's now a lightning bolt. Maybe just wording on this. Some of these, again, it's just data mine stuff. Next up, Provocation. When you remain in Werebear form for at least a set amount of duration, your next skill will overpower. So now, this one says -15. That's very interesting. You can go negative in this. interesting. But overall, this is a nerf because the numbers require you to be in there for 5 more seconds. Then heightened sense upon shapeshifting into werewolf or werebear, you get to gain a certain amount of damage reduction against elites, and then I'm not sure what it actually got changed here, but anyways, next up, Perfect Storm. Your storm skills that you cast grant, instead of 2, it's now 1 spear, so it's nerfed and deal less damage. Another nerf to Druid. That's crazy. Next up, though, Electric Shock. Lucky hit, dealing lightning damage to an enemy has up to a % chance to immobilize them. And then it'll immobilize them instead. There's nothing highlighted here. So again, sometimes with data mines, there's like changes to maybe just wording. Predatory instincts, there's a crit chance against close enemies is increased, and this got nerfed. It's lower, the lower values. Then Bad Omen, lucky hit, had some chance to deal damage. Oh, it's just the wording of, instead of Lightning Strike, it's now called Lightning Bolt. Nothing really there. Then with Cataclysm, it says cooldown seconds, lucky hit chance, instead of tornadoes, it's now twisters. Okay. So the trample, the old one, let's just look at the value. So it's just trample. It looks like you're going to be able to deal a lot more damage. So bonus damage to the trample ability. And then with wolves over here, we have a different change over here to the numerical stats. So it used to be, what is this, 35, 38, now it's 110. Oh, wow, that's a huge buff. Wow, that is massive. So instead of being 38, 35, 42, yeah, these are massive. So the wolves are going to be massively buffed. Cyclone armor used to grant you some damage reduction, and now it is going to give you less damage reduction. What? This is crazy. They like nerfed it by like half. Okay, Ravens is going to be able to now deal, instead of, what is it, 85, 93. Okay, so this is a massive buff. This is like more than double of the numerical stats here. So Ravens, look into Ravens, they're getting buffed. And then Shred, this is just like maybe a warning over here. And then Creeper, Enhanced Creeper, I think this is just, I don't know, updated text here. I'm not going to go over updated text because it's kind of like worthless. I'm just going to go over the stats with like what's buffed. So Poison Creeper over here, lucky hit chance, Poison Creeper, it doesn't say old. Okay, so the active one, it's maybe just wording. I was thinking one of these was crossed out. But anyways, that's the changes with the Druid. Okay, next up, Necromancer, the Bone Splinters. So the old one used to generate, let's see, basically, it looks like it deals way less damage. So it used to be 22, now it's 8 in terms of the first value. Dang, that got cut by a lot. It used to be 42%, now it's 15%, so major nerf on that Bone Splinter skill. Enhanced Bone Splinters, another nerf over here to, like, it's like 5%. Enhanced Bone Spear over here actually took a, it says, Bone Spear breaks into 3 shards when it's destroyed, dealing, and so Bone Spear is actually getting buffed over here. And then this one is a 10% chance to be stunned. Okay, for 2 seconds. Okay, this is just wording change over here. Corpse Explosion. This is supposed to get huge nerfs. Okay, so it used to be 75 to 142, 95. Oh, it's got cut by like 1/3 of the damage, but it's still playable, I think. Next up, we have the Blood Lance over here. It is going to make it so the essence cost is reduced by 3, so that is going to be a buff. Played Corpse Explosion. Corpse Explosion deals, used to be 10%, now it's 8% increased damage, so it's a little bit of a nerf. Terror, looks like maybe just some sort of wording change over here. These numbers look exactly the same to me. Next up, though, this just might be wording. I'm just looking for the numerical stats. So Imperfectly Balanced, our core skills are going to now cost a little bit less, but they actually deal more damage. So Necromancer actually got buffed. Okay, cool. And then next up, this is making it so they take, I guess, see, the change with some of these data mines is the wording, and the wording is just an additional shadow damage versus take additional shadow damage. Not big of a deal. Okay, that's that. We don't need to worry about that. Blood Mist over here, instead of healing, it's just heal. Nothing to mention with that. The Blood Lance over here looks like it's getting a buff, so instead of 45 to like 85, 67 to 128. Decrepify over here, this is going to make it so they are slowed by, looks like it's pretty much the same values. Yeah, these are the same values, so no real change, maybe just wording. With Reap, Reap instantly kills, or kills instead of targets its enemies, doesn't matter. So Blighted Corpse Tendrils, so we have a 30% chance to drop a Blood Orb, so that's a buff over there. Decompose, you're getting 7 essence per lucky hit, so that's going to be a buff over there. And then Skeletal Mage Mastery is getting changed over here. This is going to be more damage, and then the Golem Mastery is more damage. Death's Defense, your minions can't lose more than 75 Negative 60%. Okay, that's kind of weird that you can... That would actually be game breaking. If they can't lose more than negative 60% of life, they would just like never die. Like what would actually happen? These are some pretty crazy things that you might be able to do if you can level it up high enough. Again, these are data mined from the game. Maybe you're not allowed to even go past a certain number. Fueled by death, you deal more increased damage. That actually got a nerf over them. Okay, so Rogue, the subterfuging stealth, the skill that breaks concealment, always makes enemies vulnerable for 6 seconds, so that is going to be a buff. And then penetrating shot over here is going to be getting a nerf, so 10% less for each enemy it pierces. And then the enhanced shadow imbuement, you have 15% crit instead of 25, so that's a nerf. With disciplined shadow step, there's wording over here. With poison imbuement, we are going to actually get a buff of the base damage. That's pretty cool. But I'm pretty sure the cooldowns got nerfed. That was one thing they mentioned in one of the patch notes. Then with the Dark Shroud, while you have at least 4 active Dark Shrouds, you gain 8% crit strike. So less, it requires more amounts and you get less crit, so it's a nerf. And then this one, I guess, just grants you 1% increased movement speed. Okay, so that's a buff with that. And then with Mixed Shadow Imbuement, enemies infected by Shadow Imbuement skills have a 12% chance. Oh, this is just imbuement instead of imbued. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really change it. That's just a text change. And then with Agile, using cooldown increases your dodge chance by basically gives you like a couple % more, so it's a buff and it lasts a little bit longer, so that's a buff to Agile. Then Mending Obscurity, while stealth you heal for a set amount, that is going to be looks like it's buffed. Okay, oh no, that's Retroactive Defense, sorry. This one is, these are the numerical changes, so this one is actually a huge amount of a buff. So Mending Obscurity looking like it's like tripled the amount. And then Reactive Defense, we're able to gain, instead of just 4, it looks like this one's getting a buff too, so just more damage reduction. And then countering Poison Trap over here makes it so Poison Trap has a 30% chance to reset your imbuement skills when active, so that's a 10% buff. And then Advanced Twisting Blades, when your Twisting Blades return, the cooldowns are reduced by 0.25. Ooh, that's a huge nerf. That is 3/4 of a nerf right there, 75% less. And then we have Countering Smoke Grenade. This is going to make it so it's going to reduce it has a chance to reduce its cooldown by 1 second or to 3 for instead if the enemy is vulnerable. So Blended Poison Imbuement, so crit strikes with poisons, they're going to deal 75% increased poison damage. So that's a buff over there. And then the Precision Imbuement, we are going to be gaining a set of less critical strike chance. So it's a nerf to Precision Imbuement. And then for Concealment, we're going to be able to become unstoppable when we vanish. We're going to be able to get 30% movement speed, so that's a 5% buff. So next up, we are at the Sorcerer. So for the Sorcerer, we have the old change to the Flame Shield. This is going to be changed to... this one might just be wording because it doesn't have anything highlighted here. It looks like a 2.9 to 45, or 76. Oh, no, this is actually burn the surrounding enemies. So the duration is less, but the burn damage is increased. So it's a buff and a nerf. And then with the Frost Nova, we are going to be able to unleash a bunch of frost, and it's going to freeze enemies for 3 seconds. So it's a buff. So Snap Freeze has a, I guess it's just a wording here. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This one up to, it's just a wording. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. Align the elements, so you're going to be gaining less amount of damage reduction for each elites that you haven't taken damage from, up to 40%. So it's a nerf on the small and the big end. Enhanced Spark, we have a 20% increased chance to hit additional enemies, so it's a buff to that. Enhanced Ice Shards, you have a 40% chance to ricochet instead of 15, so it's a buff. Enhanced Charge Bolts, hitting an enemy at least 3 times has the same cast amount of Charge Bolt, releasing a Nova, dealing 24%, so it's a buff. Before it was 15. And then Enhanced Frost Nova reduces its cooldown by 1 second instead of 2, up to 4 seconds. So it's a nerf to Frost Nova when you have the bonus. Then with Ice Blades, the cooldown is reduced by 0.5 seconds each time it hits. So that's like half in terms of a nerf to Ice Blades. Then with Deep Freeze over here, We have Encase Yourself in Ice, and it's going to continuously deal 25% damage, so it's a buff. It's like doubled, and it chills enemies for 14%. So more damage, but it chills for less. Maybe it doesn't really matter, because if you're chilling them for more damage, maybe that accumulates the freeze effect much faster. Next up, Ice Armor over here is going to be, well, it's active. It's 5% of your damage dealt is added to your barrier, so that's a nerf to Ice Armor. Then we have Elemental Dominance, so our core skills are going to be dealing less damage, so it's like 10% less at the higher end, increased damage while above 50% mana, or 50 flat mana. And then this is just an up to. So Charge Bolts, the old one, the Lucky Hit chance, releasing 5 bolts of lightning, 17, so this is the buff over here to Charged Bolts, so it's 53 at the higher end versus 33. Then with Hydra, the mana cost over here, okay, that didn't change. So dealing, Hydra got a major nerf. It used to do up to 57%, and now it's 22. So that's like cut like a third. That's a huge nerf. And on top of that, the duration of the Hydra got changed from 12 to 10 seconds. So double nerfs on the Hydra over there. All right, so next up, we have Incinerate. Looks like these numbers. Ooh, that's a huge buff. So it used to do up to 17%. Now it's 90. Wow, that's a huge change. So maybe Incinerate will be some new sort of build for you to play. Next up, we have the newer change with the mana cost with the channel. So it's, this one is 23, and well, that's another huge change. 125 for Incinerate. So Incinerate might be the new build. Dang, that's crazy buffs. I mean, that's like 5 times the damage. Frigid Breeze, cold damage against vulnerable enemies, has a chance to generate extra mana, so it's just up to, it doesn't really matter. The Ice Blades, so this is getting a nerf over here. Not too much though, maybe like a 10% nerf. Then next up with Chain Lightning. So this is the skill that they're saying that was going to get nerfed. So it used to do up to like 80%, now it's 60. I think it's pretty decent. It's not really that bad. The amount of times it can chain is like reduced by 1, but I still think it's good. Next up, the Protection is only going to grant that barrier for 2 seconds. Ooh, that is a big nerf. This is one of the best things Sorcerers has. It was actually what made them the tankiest class in the game if you built them right. But that is a major nerf on Protection there. Crippling Flames, that's just an up to word. Meteor over here, looks like Meteor is getting a pretty big buff. That's like a 50% extra like damage over there. So 152 instead of like 95. And then with Frost Nova, it's going to make enemies vulnerable for less against bosses. So 2 seconds nerf on that. So Mystical Ice Armor over here are damage against vulnerable enemies contributes to 50% more to ice barriers. So that would be, that's kind of weird. Damage against vulnerable enemies contributes more to the armor. So I think that would be a nerf. And the next up, we have Ice Blades over here, where the summon Ice Blades, 20% of enhanced Ice Blades cooldown reduction is applied to your other skills. Oh, that's a big nerf. So not only did they cut the Ice Blades like cooldown reduction in half, it's 0.5 now, but that percent to other skills is 20%. Oh man, that got completely ruined, because that was going to be an easy way to get max out cooldown reduction if you were interested in playing that. Next up, Glinting Spark over here. Spark grants increased critical strike chance per cast up to it used to be 3, now it's 5 seconds, up to 8%. So a buff and nerf. And then Greater Chain Lightning. If Chain Lightning bounces off you, its next heal deals, it used to be 25, so that's another nerf to the Chain Lightning. So they nerfed Chain Lightning 2 different times, but it looks like Fire Sorceress was some sort of Incinerate build. I mean, it's 5 times the damage, but the Hydra got nerfed pretty hard too in terms of duration. But those are the patch notes, guys. Let me know what class you are playing in Diablo for the Server Slam. For me, I'm probably going to be playing all of them. I really want to test out Druid. I am just insanely surprised that Druid took any nerfs at all. I thought everything was going to be massively 3, 4, 5x multiplier, but looks like in terms of the biggest W was probably the Sorceress for the Fire. We'll have to wait and see if it's going to be the best build, but what do you guys think of this patch notes? I think overall, for me, there's a lot of numerical changes, and they're making these changes quite fast, but I think it's good to just see them being able to swap up so many things so fast. And I think that, at the end of the day, is what I'm really taking away from this, is seeing how much work that they are putting into certain things. But anyways, that's going to go wrap it up. If you guys are new here and do want to see more Diablo videos, make sure you guys are subbed with the bell notification on, and check the pinned comment for more Diablo stuff, like if you want to see RuneWords in the game. Anyways, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.